I read 8 books in August 2022, 3 in English and 5 in Finnish. At least half of them were romance books, which is kind of unusual amount for me. I started a new job in August, so I didn't really have the mental capacity to read this month as usually. Let me walk you through the books I read. My favorite novel, ladies and gentlemen. I read The Help almost every year and also try to watch the movie because I think they go so well together, which is actually quite rare if you think about it. The story is divided to 3 different points of view: Skeeter, Minnie and Abeline, and I think Kathryn Stockett does a phenomenal job dividing them and moving on to next point of view in the most thrilling points of the plot. The Help is not a light novel with all the themes and topics it covers, but it's such worth the read. Or in my case, multiple reads. Number 2. Effortless by George McKeown. This one was kind of a generic self-help book. Not to say he hadn't helpful tips to give, because he certainly did. Effortless just felt very repetitive to Getting Things Done by David Allen and Atomic Habits by James Clear. The one example of doing things the easy way that really stuck with me was the story of George McKeown thinking what he should do with this printer he didn't need anymore. He saw a construction man outside from his window, took the printer, walked out and asked if he wanted it, and he said yes. The biggest take from this book was exactly that mentality, to skip the steps you can and still achieve the things that matter. Number 3. Pakumatkalla by Aino Huilaja. This is a Finnish memoir of Aino Huilaja telling the story of her burnout and the decision to start van life. As someone who dreams about doing van life herself, this was such a happy read. Pictures were amazing, and we got to see snippets from her adventure around Europe just before COVID time. This might have been my favorite read of the whole month of August. Number 4. Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers. The worst cover of the month, in my opinion. Recommended to me by Rachel Kathryn, surprise surprise. I couldn't not read this one after hearing it was one of her favorites and a Christian fiction book reenacting the story from Hosea from the Bible. I loved the first part of the book. It was so captivating and moving. Francine Rivers did such a good job in describing Michael's attempts to win Angel's heart over and bit by bit succeeding in that. The second part though, with the family coming in the plot, wasn't necessarily a good decision in my opinion. I think the 2 parts of the plot just didn't match well together. The first part was still amazing, and I have been thinking about that many times. Number 5. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Rachel Kathryn says that Emily Henry is the perfect mix between romance and literary fiction, and I can sign that. This novel was so much deeper than it first seemed. I enjoyed the Grumpy Sunshine Troupe being on the subtler side. I loved Alex's character with its depth and personal history and the sensitiveness. Although the one pet peeve of mine was the way Poppy dressed, definitely not the subtler side of sunshineness. The end part felt a bit rushed though. I think it was because the reveal of what had happened during the last holiday was kept secret for so long. Number 6. Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was the fourth book I read by TGR, and it was very different from the old Hollywood/California setting or of her newest books. Maybe in Another Life was in many ways a very basic romance novel. I didn't find it disappointing, but actually encouraging, because I think it embraced the quote, "Practice makes perfect." You can start your way with kind of basic stories and end up writing some of the biggest book phenomena of the decade, like Taylor Jenkins Reid has. I would have hoped to know more about Hannah's past, with moving across the country multiple times and the meaningless jobs she had had. I think that would have been something many 20-somethings could have identified well with. Number 7. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This was a very anticipated read for me, my first CoHo, and boy was I disappointed. Mostly because I thought the story simply wasn't believable enough in the sense of all the things happening so freaking fast and kind of randomly. The themes and the topic of domestic violence is, of course, super complex and difficult one to write about, and I've honestly never read a single one of the topic that I would have liked, so no shame to anybody. I was just so surprised to learn what It Ends With Us was all about. All of this being said, I think I was still a little bit hooked to Lily's story and might end up reading It Begins With Us. And lastly, number 8, The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I read this one mostly because of the brand new Finnish translation. I'm a fan of All the Boys I Loved Before movies, but when I read the first book of that trilogy, I wasn't impressed enough to read the following ones. This trilogy was kind of the same situation, except I haven't seen the show. I liked the nostalgia in this book. The stories of the past summers and the whole summer vibe was captured really well. The start of the love triangle, though, I didn't like a whole lot and don't think we'll be reading the rest of the trilogy.